Hi, friends. Welcome to the Mobile Bev Pros podcast, a podcast dedicated to providing mobile bar and event professionals with the information they need to succeed. I'm your host, business coach, and founder of the Mobile Bar Academy, Sarah Murphy. In each episode, the Mobile Bev Pros team will bring you industry experts, information, anecdotes, and opinions with the goal of assisting you in building a profitable, sustainable, and successful business that supports you in creating wealth. I'm excited to share with you today's episode, so let's get started.
Hello and welcome back to the Mobile Bev Pros podcast. We are fired up today for this. And so this is going to be an absolutely golden episode. We are going to be talking about the cost of not having a strategy in place. What is it costing you to not have a plan? What is it costing you to have a plan, but then rebel against said plan? Because many of us are really good about going, this is what needs to be done, and then going, but I'm not going to do that. And so what is that costing you? And we're going to get into some of the nuances of strategy versus flow, energetic management of time, resources, money. It's going to be absolutely golden.
This podcast is coming out of a period for you and I of play, which is kind of ironic, right? Because we dropped that episode last week about how important it is that when you get stuck in a rut and you kind of start to lose steam, or you're like, I don't know how to move this ball forward. And you and I intentionally did a bunch of non-MBP, non-work related stuff last week, which is perfect because it was my birthday weekend. And so I got to kind of unplug a little bit and do some fun things. And what happened is this realization that we can't be outside of who we are. And in business, oftentimes we're trying to squeeze ourselves through all of these different frameworks that other people say, this is what you should do. This is what success looks like. And it can become a bit of a prison. We're coming up on Q4. I'm actively in the process of planning the Q4 kick-ass strategy workshop that we're hosting on Tuesday. And I love strategy. And I realized that anytime I talk strategy, people in the accelerator, they're like, yes, I will join the accelerator because Sarah's going to create my strategy for me. Yes, I'm going to attend this webinar because I need a strategy. So like logically, they recognize they need it, they want it, have to have it. It's beneficial. Great. I will then hand a strategy to someone and they will never look at it again. They will never look at it again. Every once in a while during our quarterly reviews, they'll be like, oh, let me pull up that 6-figure strategy that Sarah put together for me that I just haven't had the chance to do and haven't looked at since. And if you remember with the first group program, maybe it was the second or third iteration of the group program, I created in-depth strategies within Asana, signed due dates, had overview and insight into the whole thing, and nobody used it then. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do all this work and create these vast, robust structures for people to operate within, to know like when they're behind and when things are due. It was a heavy lift for me and the team, and nobody was using it. And so I'm like, okay, they don't see value in that, right? And so we made it a little bit easier. Now it's like an Excel spreadsheet, and I give it to you, and then every week we check in, check out on it. Most people don't do that either. And you start to take things personally when you're like, you wanted a strategy and I gave you the strategy. We co-created this thing to achieve your biggest, wildest goals within this container. And you don't use it. And so it's not uncommon for the goals at the top of the quarterly strategy to look almost identical to the ones at the top of the last strategy. And that's when you and I kind of we were like, okay, but like, why? Let's look at that. And because we're not immune to this either. Like we sat together in Chattanooga in December of this past year and created an annual strategy, very detailed, put it all on a calendar. We felt so proud. And we got 3 months in and we're like, no, we're not doing that. Right. And so for this podcast, I really kind of want to look at what's come up for us around why this happens and the advice that we are taking ourselves and how that has impacted positively how we show up in the world and the work that we do and the work that we support our clients with, and that will directly inform what people will hear, not only in the quarterly webinar that we're doing on Tuesday, but also BREW, which I'm so excited about. Like the single most impactful, empowering event that we've ever done. And it has to be done in person. And that's why it is in person. It's not, I can't webinar this. It's going to be transformational for person and business. And this is going to be certainly part of what we do there.
We see this come up through forms of self-sabotage, and we've really been receiving a lot of appreciation for podcast listeners of when we go a little deeper. And so I'm going to go a little deeper because what we're seeing is essentially self-sabotage. I have the strategy. I know what needs to be done, and I am not going to do it. Why? Why are you not going to do it? And so that's a form of self-sabotage. It is pre-programmed. We have systems of self-betrayal that are minor to us, where we say, I'm going to go sugar-free for the next 3 months. And then that very same day, we eat an entire tub of ice cream. We say, I'm going to wake up tomorrow, I'm going to work out. And the next morning we wake up and we scroll Instagram until we absolutely have to take our first meeting. Forms of self-sabotage in small ways that add up, and they erode self-trust. And so even when you have a strategy before you that's going to take you from wherever you are to 6 figures in sales, or for some of our clients from 6 figures in sales to 6 figures in profit, you're not going to implement it because you don't trust yourself to uphold the result of that strategy. If it's this easy, I just take these steps and then I have this wealth. Because I don't trust myself, I can't trust myself to hold even more than I'm holding now, right? And if this strategy leads to more, we're just not going to take action on it. And so we see it in systems of self-sabotage. The other thing that comes up is that we, as entrepreneurs, are artists. We got into this business so that somebody would stop telling us what the fuck to do, right? We are here to be our own boss, to be able to manage our own time, our own energy, our own money. The problem there is that we're not also practicing systems of self-trust. So we're not very good at managing our time, our money, and our energy. And so we see that oftentimes that they kind of need somebody to tell them what to do. And that's lacking in entrepreneurship. And so we oftentimes take that same rebellion that we had in the corporate world into our entrepreneurial ventures. The problem is we're rebelling against us, and we really need to be on the same team with us if we're going to make this thing work, right? And so there's things that you don't want to do. And there are so many leaders out there teaching that you can do nothing other than what you absolutely love and make super bank. And we have probably said that in places before because it is true. You want to be in alignment.
I say it all the time. Everything in shadow and light. So it is not untrue. It is a process of mastery. You don't
Right.
get there today. You probably won't get there tomorrow. You probably won't get there in a year. It is a process of mastery. And if you want to spend your time in your, what I like to call zone of genius, which is the things that you love doing and the things that you're really great at, there's a few other things you can put in there, but like we'll simplify it there, then it's a process of getting there. And in the meantime, you're doing a whole lot of shit you don't want to do.
Yeah, the example I used yesterday to support a multi-6-figure earner in the mobile bar business was that if I told you that you needed to run a marathon in 30 days, and that marathon, the end result, if you get that marathon, you get $1 million. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to practice, right? You're going to have to get up and start running. You're going to have to learn how to run a marathon, then go start moving your body to get better at running the marathon. The process of learning to run is ass. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants to get up at 3 a.m. Okay. But the reward is self-discipline, which is the top reward, by the way. But it sounds terrible in the implementation process. And so actually the process of growth is a series of steps, a series of you doing shit you don't want to do so that you can be really good at what you do want to do. Self-discipline.
I just got off a call. It's a monthly pod that I lead for a group of Cornellians. And one of the attendees came right out and said, I want to know from the group how you create your strategy for business. She's an entrepreneur. She has a product-based business. She's like, I got this opportunity over here on TikTok Shop. I got this opportunity because like Walmart's like talking to me. I got this opportunity over here with hotels. And they're all like great opportunities. But I'm one person and I have a team, but like I'm still one person. And I don't know, how do you create a strategy to like pick what you're going to do, right? And one of the main things that I talk a lot about, you've heard it if you're listening, is focusing your time, your attention, your awareness. If you dilute and diffuse your attention, you get mediocre results everywhere instead of your super impactful results by focusing in one place. And she is feeling that. It's showing up in her business. She's like, this opportunity's kind of working. This opportunity's kind of working. And so I'm not seeing a whole lot of great results by putting all my eggs in different baskets, even though I hear that like omnichannel is really important. And yes, omnichannel, you can do all the things, but you can't do all the things at the same time. Like build upon each other, right? So my feedback to her is similar to what I'll be teaching in the webinar, in that we start with your intention for your business. And I have been calling this the purpose. Simon Sinek calls it the why, but you brought the phrase intention to Telegram today. And I really liked it because people get really spun up in purpose. What is my purpose? I don't know. But intention is something that you set. Your business can go in any direction whatsoever. But when you started it, you probably had an intention for it, right? Whatever that is. And for her product is bamboo toilet paper. And I asked her, what is your purpose for having a bamboo toilet paper? And she ultimately said a whole bunch of words. And what I distilled it out was that her goal is to make a positive impact on the environment. She wanted to give people better choices for toilet paper and paper towels and tissues and all those things that aren't bleached and they don't use paper. And so they are better for the environment. And so we start there. You filter all these opportunities. You have three things. You have TikTok, you have Walmart, and you have hotels. Which of those three things is the worst for the environment? She's like, well, TikTok, because direct to consumer takes a ton of energy to get all of these little toilet paper rolls to people. And obviously, every time you post on social media, you use a ton of energy. And so like all of these things are really high in energy. So that's probably the worst. I was like, okay, we could have filtered those opportunities through that funnel from the beginning. And if you had those, three things, then this one is actually the most detrimental to the environment. So it's not really fulfilling my purpose as well as these others could. Okay. Second layer that we filter things through are values. And I feel like this has become such, like, we might have episode 2 episodes ago about values, but I cannot stress enough how important it is that things get filtered through your values before you do them. And so her question was, well, how do I identify my values? And we've talked about the exercises that we do at our workshops because it's kind of like a shortcut. Like we don't have all week. We have a couple hours to kind of talk about this. And so here's a bunch of words and pick out the ones that like resonate with you. And then would you die on that hill? If yes, then that's your value, right? The real process of values and figuring out what your values are is life. It's literally walking through life and taking a look at, where are you judging others? Where do you judge yourself? If someone says a thing and it makes you feel a certain way negatively, like let's look at that because they triggered a value there. If you hate doing some things, but you love doing other things, there's probably a value there. And my advice to her was like, literally keep a notebook or your notes app open. And anytime you feel triggered, anytime you feel like you want to judge somebody or that you're concerned that someone's going to judge you for a thing, if you really look at that, you'll find a value. And you might end up with a list of, 20 different things. And some of those values probably aren't related to your business, important for your business. You can just cross those off when it comes to doing business related stuff. Some of that stuff are hills you would die on. And if someone was like to come up to you and say, I hate this about your business, you would look at them and say, too bad. That is a really important thing for me. And that's the how in which we show up in the world. That's how you know it's a value. When it comes to strategic planning, first of all, you got to figure out where you're going, your intention, right? Set the intention. This is where we're going. Second thing is that anything we do to get there then gets filtered through your value system. Is it helping you accomplish this? Is it helping you be more of this? Is it doing more of this in the world, which is what you value? Then we have a bunch of opportunities. And those opportunities, those goals that we set, that's where we pick up on creating an actionable strategy. The rest is all kind of moral based and idealistic, but it's not super actionable. So where we get to start in creating a strategy after filtering opportunities through those things is, okay, well, what exactly are we going to do to achieve our intention. And that's where strategic plans start. And then that's where we get the rub, because suddenly our visionary entrepreneurs aren't just having to think about a thing or plan a thing or visualize a thing. Now we actually have to execute a thing.
Yes. And if you're somebody who has gone through a strategy and then started rebelling, potentially it's because the strategy that you set forth wasn't filtered through your values and it wasn't set with a clear intention. And so, for example, the strategy that you and I sat down and created in December in Chattanooga was completely out of alignment with our values. And we didn't see it then because we were looking at like the value was impact. And so we wanted to get more people. The problem that we started running into was that more didn't mean more impact, because just because more people were coming in didn't mean that those people had a quality of focus on what it is you were here to teach, right? And so we were able to look and say, that's why that strategy felt like friction for us and why ultimately we dropped it. And now we're moving into a new strategy with alignment to those core values: depth, intimacy, impact. And so it's a process of learning. I will also say that when you find yourself rebelling against yourself, maybe your strategy is aligned with your values, it is aligned with your intentional life vision, and you're still rebelling. Now we're getting into that erosion of self-trust, at which point I highly recommend getting support. Okay. And while I would love for it to be Sarah or I, it doesn't have to be. Okay. But someone who can reflect back to you where you are self-sabotaging. The reason you need a reflection for that is because the process of self-sabotage is unconscious. What does unconscious mean? Unknown to you. It is literally outside of your line of vision. You cannot see it. And so you will think, I'll give you an example. This multi-six-figure mobile bar owner I was supporting yesterday, I said, you got to do the things. And he said, I do the things. I don't really know what else to do, because he's experiencing a decline in his revenue. And he's got this like new opportunity over here, but it's not making any money yet. And so he's like, this doesn't light me up. That lights me up, but that doesn't make money yet. Okay, well, but this making money directly supports the creation of this next thing, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, well, then over here where you're not as lit up, you still got to do the fucking things. And he's like, I don't really know what I would do. No, that is the saboteur. I call bullshit. This is a 6.5-year-old business. There was a time in his business when nobody knew who he was. Nobody knew the name of his bar. And then he dominated the market for the first couple of years. Then he started to lose passion. Okay. And when we lose passion, we start taking less and less of the actions that matter. And when we do take those actions, they come from a lack of passion. So it's kind of lackluster. You said earlier that people are diluting their focus. And when you dilute your focus, you get diluted results, right? And so we need you to be super clear on where you're going. If you don't have clarity as to why you're building this structure, the image that I get is like in Whoville, Dr. Seuss, where all the buildings are like all sorts of wonky and silly looking. Like that's what you're going to end up with, right? We want you to have a stable foundation so that your structure stands nice and tall and in integrity. And ultimately, guys, when you're seeking fulfillment, when you're seeking success, when you're seeking wealth, what you're actually seeking underneath all of those things is alignment. It is integrity with your own personal pantheon of rules and values. It is a purpose for which you can live, an intention for which you can live. It's not really about the money, and it's not really about having more time. It's about doing things with your money and time that move you in a very specific direction. And so that's why we want you to have a strategy. And then if you have a strategy and you're rebelling against it, that's why we want you to have support, because you can't see where you're self-sabotaging.
I love that you use the example from our annual planning, because impact was the intention. We were like, oh, impact looks like this. And then we tried this and we're like, that feels gross. I don't like this. I don't like anything about this. I don't even like the results that when we do it this way. And the intention hasn't changed. It's still impact. Our analysis and assessment of it changed. So our strategy has to change. And so it's important, I think, to spell out for people. And I'm speaking to myself, because if anybody, you don't have to burn it all down in order to still achieve the greater intention. And sometimes you do need to burn it down because the intention, the reason you started your mobile bar was to do a thing that the mobile bar will never do for you. That was easy. It was like the low hanging fruit. It was the thing that was at hand. And you're like, we actually had one of our accelerators reflect this back today where she's like, I didn't start a mobile bar to like develop personally and become a better human, but alas, here we are. Right. And so like your mobile bar can be a vessel for great things. Sometimes it's a huge distraction from great things. It was just what was easy and available and you had a lot of energy for at the time, but it's a tool, right? And so it's possible another tool might be better, but it's possible that the tool at hand, your mobile bar, is asking more from you than anything has ever asked from you before. It's asking you to be, oh my God, organized. It's asking you to be disciplined. It's asking you to be consistent. It's asking you to show up and do the things, even if you don't want to do the things. It's asking you to be self-led and self-driven. And those things, they may feel like they don't fit at first and that you don't like them because you're like, I hate when people put demands on my time. I hate when people tell me what to do. But you build, to your point, self-trust. You stop self-sabotaging by exercising that muscle. As someone who's currently in personal training, and you mentioned coach, like I'll get 10 reps into something and I'm like, I'm done. She's like, you got 5 more. I don't think I do. You got 5 more. Turns out I did have 5 more, and I wouldn't have done those 5 more if she didn't see that in me, if she didn't have a good sense of what was possible for me, right? And so like the value of having someone who is holding that vision that you said you wanted, even when it's hard, by reminding you what it takes to get there, is super valuable. And she creates my strategy every time I go in there. She's like, here's my strategy. And I don't like doing things that other people tell me to do, but I'll do them because my intention is to get stronger. And I know that like she's going to get me there. The friction that I think we're trying to highlight for everybody is that it's not enough to just have a strategy or create a strategy. It's not enough to just come to the webinar on Tuesday and be like, Sarah's going to give me the strategy. And I am. But if that strategy just sits in your inbox, if that strategy just sits in that digital file in which I'm going to provide you, it's not going to work. The strategy is great. It rests on you to actually execute the strategy, hold yourself accountable, achieve things on the due dates that you set for yourself, and then to continue to hone because it's not one size fits all. You might find actually I didn't want to achieve this or I didn't want to achieve it in this way. And so then you got to create a new strategy filtered through your intention and your value set. And like we're going to share a process on Tuesday for doing that will serve you forever. And so you literally can just rinse and repeat anytime you want to create a new strategy. But you have to have one. If you don't know where you're going, how are you ever going to get there? And so many of the people that we work with not only don't come in with a strategy, they've never used a strategy. When they do have a strategy, they don't execute the strategy. They also have a ton of excuses as to why they don't use the strategy or have a strategy. And then they'll say, I'm so busy, I'm so disorganized. That's on you. Figure that out. Like you're a business owner now. So put that CEO hat on. It's not enough to say like, oh, I'm so disorganized. And I know there's a whole bunch of other people out there that are teaching the opposite of that. They're like, you don't have to be organized, just show up. Be you. You're amazing. Manifest it. It'll just come while you sit on the couch. And that's enough. You just got to, put it out there in the universe. I have not found that to be true. And the clients that we've worked with have not found that to be true. Unfortunately, I would love to say that, like, listen, I have proof that this works. But the most amount of success that we see with people is when they set a goal, they create action items and a plan to get there, and then they execute on those things. Even if they don't necessarily work the way that they think they're going to work, they will birth new ideas.
I've been in the metaphysical for almost 13 years now. And I can tell you the number one way to manifest anything, the only way to manifest anything is through action. Now, back up a bit because before you can take the appropriate action, maybe you need a better mindset or you need a mindset shift. And in all of my work, here's what I found. you take the fucking action, it shifts your mindset. I'm just saying. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Okay. So here's the thing. When you come to brew, you're going to experience this firsthand. There's a reason it's a 3-day long thing. There's a reason why we're taking you from your current location and putting you in a different location. Okay. Because when we change states, we change states. Okay. And so we're going to change your state, and then we're going to help you identify your values, identify your big intention, your huge, like, why am I fucking doing this? And then we're going to help you create the action steps required for you to get to where you said you wanted to go. Now, the other thing that we see is that people, myself included, I've done this, will say, I didn't actually want that because it requires such a evolved version of us that we're uncomfortable. And so it's easier to shrink. I'll just shrink back down. Oh, I didn't actually want that. No, you did. You're just not yet willing to sacrifice what's required for you to make that evolutionary step. And we see this in humanity as a whole. The purpose of the human consciousness right now on the planet is to master energetic investment. It's literally to master how to take ideas and make things. You look into the world and you see animals, plants, rocks, okay? The fungi kingdom. They can't take an idea and make it manifest, but you can. As a human, you have the unique ability to take an idea and manifest it into your world via your thoughts, actions, and energetic investments, okay? And so the purpose of us as a species right now is to master that skill set. We're still a baby species. We're babies at this. What you'll find is that in that mastery of energetic investment, you are more fulfilled by doing the challenging things, the things that you thought you couldn't do. Why do people love having checklists? Because I have a clear intention with it. And when I'm done, I can mark it off and I can feel accomplished. I did that thing. When we're depressed, it's probably a lack of structure in our lives. Okay. And all the mindset work in the world isn't going to help you create a structure when a structure is what you need. And so get into brew and get really clear on your evolution. What's next for you so that you can look back and be really proud of what you've accomplished and say, I did really hard shit and it paid off.
There's a management guru. He was of like the 2000s, the 90s, called Peter Drucker. And I was trying to find the quote so I could read it, but I couldn't. And he basically says that the human species has never before had more choices than they have now to do all things, what you're going to buy, what you're going to do with your time. Like, we've never had more choice than we do now. But the human brain has not evolved to a point where it can handle all the choices that it has responsibly. And so we follow the dopamine. We follow what makes us feel good, follow the joy. And that leads to chaos. It leads to not achieving the things that are the most important to us because we've spent a ton of time and energy and money and resources on things that aren't aligned with our values. And so until our brain catches up in helping us learn how to choose intelligently between all of the potential options, the best thing is to create a plan and stick to it. No matter how uncomfortable it is, trust the process that this plan is the best for you until it's very clear the plan is not. But having the plan and not doing any of it and just winging it is absolutely not going to get you there for a number of reasons. We don't have enough time to talk about all of the physiological, biological reasons that just trusting that it'll all work out in the end, wherever it is that you're spending your time and attention, it will work out, but it probably won't be achieving that thing that you were intentionally trying to create. You need to actually follow a plan to get there. And so often we wake up, we look around and be like, what am I going to do today? Or opposite is we've overcommitted ourselves to so many tedious things, so many operational checklisty things that there's no space in our calendar to be intentional. And that's also a problem, but not one that we're talking about today. Like, if you already don't have room to execute an intentional strategy, you got to work on that first. Because if you have a strategy, you're going to have to make space and time for it. And we do actually go through that process within the planning process that we've created. So what I'm ultimately trying to say here is that if you haven't achieved your big goals and you're sitting here 3 months away from the end of the year and you're like, I don't even have a plan for the last 3 months. Don't make that mistake for 2025. We can help you create that strategy. We can help you clarify your vision, all the things that Dawn already said. You don't have to do it alone. If you've never done it before successfully, chances are you're not going to do it successfully going forward either, because you don't necessarily have a framework yet. We're going to give you that. Don't keep running your business blind and ad hoc. It's not going to get you where you want to go.
Listen, fam, you chose entrepreneurship, which means by default, you chose evolution, because you, my friend, unknowingly or otherwise, have just entered or potentially been in for a hot minute the number one route to personal development that ever existed. Period. You want to level up in life? Start a business. It'll show you everywhere that you're keeping yourself small. It'll show you all the places that you're not trusting yourself. It'll show you your money shadows, where you're afraid to invest, where you feel scarce. It'll show you your time shadows, where you're afraid to invest, where you're scarce. It'll show you relationship shadows, communication skill errors. It will show you everything about yourself. And you don't have to do it alone, because we've been in it. We do it every day. We support people every single day in evolving and becoming a more clarified and more fulfilled version of who they are. And ultimately, entrepreneurship is about returning to your center, because you can't be outside of your nature. You can't be anything than what you were wired to be. But you have all these stories about why how you were wired to be isn't good enough. And we're going to help you remove all those stories. You came into this planet perfectly able to ask for help. All right. And then over time, we got scarce and we started to self-rebel and we started to doubt our self-worth. Having a strategy helps you clean all that shit up. It's like doing a deep facial, like they go real deep in and they take all the stuff out of your pores. And you're like, I can breathe better. Why is that? This process is going to help you clarify your path to fulfillment and your path to wealth all at the same time, because those two things aren't separate from each other. And so get into BREW. I'll drop the link, $100 deposit. As of the recording of this podcast, it is a pay in two. And so we'll break your payments up into 2 separate payments. But as we get closer to deadline, it's going to be pay in full. And so if you want to be able to split that up, now's the time to get in. Doors are closing November 30th. And so the time to invest in yourself is now. Don't wait. Don't listen to that voice that tells you that you have to be making more before you can invest more and before you can receive more, because investing more is how you receive more, and receiving more is how you make more. And so don't work it backwards. Start with investing in yourself and it will pay off.
I'm also going to add that if you are a member of the Mobile Bar Academy, you get 15% off brew passes, and that savings pretty much pays for the academy itself for the first month. So it's worth just hopping in there and saving the 15% off that brew pass if you're not already a member of the academy. And if you are a member of the academy, that's a part of it. You get 15% all of our live events. And so might as well take advantage of that perk and sun, sand, and plan with us.
Another wonderful episode, guys. We look forward to chatting with you on the next one.
And that wraps up today's episode. I hope it was valuable. I would love to hear from you what you thought. You can drop me a line at hello@mobilebevpros.com or find me on Instagram at mobilebevpros. If you're looking for more valuable mobile bar related content, we have a website full of it. You can find us at www.mobilebevpros.com. And I'd love to see you in our Facebook community, also by the name of, you guessed it, Mobile Bev Pros. Thank you for joining me today, and until next time, cheers.